Well, we're back. It's unbelievable. Just just about 2 months off, but we're back. Welcome to the Colonel and the Kid podcast. Today is August 4th, 2026, and this is the Colonel and the Kid podcast. I know it's been a while, and I apologize. Took a little hiatus, but we're back talking about my grandfather. Like I said, this is the Colonel and Kid podcast based on the memoir of that same name, dedicated to my grandfather, Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr., or Lieutenant Colonel Edwin P. Hagen Jr., retired. And it was my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, and I'm your host, Gregory L. Heitmann. A lot of people call me Greg Heitmann, or just Greg. So I've tried to spice it up a little bit by referring to myself as Gregory for more professional reasons. For as a writer and a podcaster, I try to differentiate my previous working life with my new working life as a podcaster by going from Greg to Gregory. So we have that going for me. But enough about that. Let's talk about the chapter. Today's chapter is chapter 44, the last pheasant hunt. And there's going to be 60 chapters. So this is chapter 44. So the next chapter is chapter 45. That'll be 3/4 of the way through this effort, and an epic effort to try to record the history of my relationship with my grandfather. And it'll be 3/4 through, and I'll tell you what, it's been a long haul. I was just discussing the fact that the chapter that I was editing yesterday, I always put a date on the file, and the date that I noticed the last time I'd worked on it was 2022 in August 2022. So that was 4 years ago since I'd last edited that particular chapter, which would be chapter 46. Coming soon, I promise. But I think when I first kicked off this effort of doing the podcast and getting the memoir done, the Colonel and the Kid memoir about my grandfather, I think I had talked about that. Well, next month it'll be 1 year since I started the effort. Got all my podcasting equipment together and started doing some recording of myself and getting the distribution out there for the podcast. It'll be 1 year next month, and I had talked about getting this memoir wrapped up in 2026, and was for some reason I was fairly confident that was going to happen, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen now. Maybe because we're getting ready for fall. Like I said, August 4th, coming up to the best time of year, fall and hunting season. And there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. I'll be getting out and about. So I'm not particularly confident that I'm going to be able to get this all wrapped up in the year 2026. I'm going to keep working, but you have to forgive me if I don't get it all done. I'd like to say I've done my best, but I don't know. I think that might be stretching it. I think I've been slacking off, doing some other stuff, diverted my attention here and there, but I promise we'll get it done sometime. I'm not going to try to commit to any certain dates anymore. It's just, the whims of life take precedence. So, sorry. But anyway, we got chapter 44, the last pheasant hunt with Grandpa, and it's moving along. We're getting nearer the end. It gets tougher, a little more emotional circumstance as time starts, filling the bottom of the hourglass. So it's not as easy as I thought it might be, just to go ahead and try to wrap things up and finish things up and work on it. So bear with me as I try to even get back on the saddle here, get back in the saddle, get back on the horse with my read aloud skills, trying to read this chapter today. it's interesting to me, I guess. I talk about this, the podcast in a whole. The memoir is the spine of the podcast, and I build out from there. And I'll just in a moment, I'll get that chapter started and read into the record. And then I have some other things. I talk about my recurring segments, and I have a good one today, but I'm not going to go too long because I think my voice is going to probably kind of wane in the end here because I just haven't been reading aloud so much or talking that much. But I do have a good segment about look what I found. So look for that at the end of this podcast, and we'll go ahead and just get started. Get that chapter read into the record. Again, this whole thing is dedicated to the memory of my grandfather and just trying to preserve the history, and I guess really concentrated on the relationship I had with my grandfather. I mean, my grandfather was, a man of many friends, acquaintances, and he was just more well known than me, I guess. So he's really the star. I like to pretend I'm the star of the podcast, but my grandpa's the star. So we'll just go ahead and start talking about this in the last pheasant hunt. Pheasant hunting has been a big part of the memories I've had of my grandfather and a big part of his life. And so, it's kind of sad. I mean, we're down to the last pheasant hunt. We'll get that called up and read into the record. So here we are. The Colonel and the Kid. Chapter 44, The Last Pheasant Hunt. And as always, we start with a quote. And the quote reads, quote, "There's no place like home," end quote. And of course, you may recognize that from The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And you'll see what I mean, why I started that, and maybe I'll highlight that when I start reading the chapter here. And this chapter starts with the photo. So we're going to kick this whole thing off the photo. And this is a similar photo I've used before, but I'll read the caption and then try to describe. Caption reads, "A couple years prior to Grandpa's last pheasant hunt, we took some photos to memorialize the day. It was a beautiful October 1996 day after a successful time afield. From left to right, Gary Heitmann, my dad, Greg Heitmann, Grandpa, Kristen Heitmann, Garrett Heitmann, and Grady Heitmann holding Caitlin Heitmann at Grady's Ranch in Falk County, South Dakota. It's a nice pile of birds, so I'm going to conclude that it was 5 full limits of roosters, 3 apiece, for a total of 15 big pheasants." So in the picture, this is on Grady's driveway, and I think he had just had the house remodeled then. He had a big, nice 2-car garage, and it's got the nice brand new shingles and everything. And we're sitting on the back of his I think it was the red Dodge pickup. And I'm guessing it was probably Bobby, Grady's wife, that took this photo. And it's funny because we got, I think that's Sissy, the boss farm cat for a long time at Grady's place. She's sitting on the driveway right next to my dad's foot. My dad's sitting on the tailgate with his one foot on the ground, the other foot up in the air. And then I can see another cat, between his legs standing on the driveway. And my dad's got his hand on one of the roosters there. And Kristen, Grady's oldest daughter, she's probably 4, I think. And she's sitting in the middle of the tailgate and in front of the birds, and she's kind of like the focus of the photo. And Grady's standing at the other side of the tailgate opposite my dad, and he's holding Caitlin, who's I think she was probably 1 year old at that time. And Grady's not looking at the camera. I don't know if he's looking at the cat, and it looks like Caitlin's looking down too, like they're looking at the cat, Sissy, at my dad's feet. And in the back of the bed of the truck, it's me. I'm between my dad and Grandpa. Grandpa's way towards the cab of the truck in the back, and Garrett's on the other side between way towards the back. But in the photo, he's centered between Kristen and Caitlin in the photo. Nice sunny day, blue sky, beautiful October day. Just it's strange how sometimes, that fall can just be so cooperative with, an upland bird game hunt for pheasants out there in Falk County. And I see Grady's got, I think that might have been one of the first four-wheelers he had sitting over there on the side of the house. And I think that, like I said, the remodel was going on. So I think that's a brand new concrete slab. And next to it, there's no grass growing there because I think it was new slab and the dirt work that they had to get it, get the soil back up against the edge of the driveway there. So it hadn't been seeded yet. So it's a very awesome photo to have in the record, just of the progression of time as time goes by, and enjoying enjoying the results of a good day of field, getting some nice pheasants. So, all right, let's start the chapter. I didn't know the last pheasant hunt was going to be my final hunt with Grandpa. I can't even guarantee I can tell you what year it was, but I'm going to declare that it was 1998. The last pheasant hunt I remember with Grandpa wasn't in Falk County under Grady's guide service. That might have been something more productive in terms of seeing birds and harvesting a few roosters for a meal or two. The final pheasant hunt was, in fact, just outside Siston, South Dakota, Grandpa's old stomping grounds. And that is why I use the quote for "There's no place like home," for Grandpa to go out one final time around his home country and look for some pheasants. It was a very warm fall day, and my mom and dad had traveled with Grady and me to Siston for an afternoon visit. I think Garrett may have been on one of his pharmacy rotations, so he wasn't there. But then again, he may have been gone along. I just that detail of the memory just evades me. We took our shotguns along per Grandpa's request, just in case we had some time to do some road hunting. It was just an hour's drive from Groton to Grandma and Grandpa's country house, just outside Siston. In the middle of the afternoon, upon our arrival, Grandma had fresh caramel rolls for a snack. After a bit of conversation, it was decided we would indeed take a drive to look around for some pheasants. As I look back at it now, I think Grandpa knew this was his swan song as far as hunting goes. He never breathed a word about hanging up his gun, but all the signs were there. He ended on a high note. After driving a few gravel roads, hoping to see some birds, coming to the shoulders of the traveled way for some sand for their gizzards, our group came across some promising-looking ground. We ended up walking a small piece of public land. It may have been a walking area, sponsored by the South Dakota Game Fish and Parks. It seems like there was an old gravel pit in the midst of the grassy area. Grandpa and my dad, as blockers, settled into their positions as Grady and I just pushed through some tall grass. Maybe just a couple 100 yards, if that. Nothing. No birds were flushed. It was a beautiful day. Short-sleeved t-shirt weather, in fact. A little warm, if you're walking. We all headed back to the truck. I remember there being just a little bit of a slope to navigate to get out of the ditch and back up to the road. I climbed up and Grandpa trailed behind. I didn't think much of it then, but in retrospect, Grandpa struggled for breath just walking on flat ground. So when he came to the slope, he asked me for a little help. I turned back and he extended the barrel of the shotgun toward me. I think I laughed a bit, just grabbed the gun and pulled him up the grade. It seemed unusual to me, Grandpa needing help, but then using the shotgun for leverage. I guess I was in denial about my or anyone's mortality. It's difficult reconciling the aging process as it is, but 20 plus years ago, I think I was oblivious to it, wrapped up in my own little world. As far as I knew, we were all going to live forever. And here I have another photo. And I'll read the caption and talk about it a little bit. Grandpa's pheasant gun on that last hunt. It makes my mind spin to think about all the birds that shotgun harvested. fowl and pheasants both. It is a Remington Model 11. It uses Browning patents and has that familiar Browning humpbacked appearance. It just looks cool with its nice wood grain in the stock, but the form is a little plain. It has no engraving in the metal. It doesn't have that modern ventilated rib sight. This shotgun is a utilitarian weapon designed to harvest birds for the table. And it's just this is just a photo of the shotgun my grandpa used on that last hunt, and he used a lot throughout his time. I think it appears in the pictures when he's in the duck boat out hunting. And this photo is I just took a photo from above, have it laid out on the carpet I don't know where it was taken for sure. Maybe here in Santa Fe, I think. And it's just that gun is probably, I would venture to say it's probably 70 years old at least. I wonder if I can get the serial number and do some Googling to find out from Browning, Remington, I guess, is the maker, using Browning patents to see what year that gun was made. That information is probably available. Maybe I'll do that. I should have done that, but maybe I'll do that now and report on that later. But it's in great shape. It's got some marks on it, I guess, in the stock. And I'm looking at it. It's more of a blonde forearm, wood grain on the forearm part, but the stock is a little more reddish brown. I don't know if it's different wood. Maybe the stock or the forearm has been replaced. I don't know. I'm just looking at that. That's the first time I really ever thought about that. I always thought that was a little more blonde all the way through on all the wood, but it's interesting to me. But I just like that gun, and I don't know, maybe I'll take it out sometime I don't think I've ever shot it. Maybe I'll just take it out to give her one last go sometime. And here's another photo. I'll read the caption and then talk about it. Here's a close-up of Grandpa's shotgun action. I don't like the safety mechanism located inside the trigger guard. And you can catch a glimpse of it here in the photo. And so that's what I'm highlighting here. You got the trigger, the main trigger, then there's like a little nub sticking down from the top of the trigger guard. And I guess that's just the safety for, keeping firing or not firing. I think forward is I don't know. I'm not even sure how that works. If forward is firing and then back is unsafe, or is the safety is activated, not unsafe, on safe. So I don't know, but you can see the way the photo, the reflection, the bluing looks still pretty decent shape for being as old as that gun is. Then we have another photo here. I'll read the caption. The caption reads, Grandpa's case for his shotgun, an ancient multi-polymer zippered case from Sears, Roebuck and Company. And it's just kind of this off clay, grayish brown colored mostly, and then some black other plastic material, and it's got a handle. And surprisingly, it's still in decent shape and not cracked or anything. You'd think that sort of that plastic material would have oxidized and cracked after all these years. But there it is. Sits in good shape. And then finally, one more photo. And I'll read the caption here and then describe. I felt obliged to include another example of Grandpa's military penmanship on the name card of the shotgun case. So on the side of the case, there's a little opening, and you can slide. It's got a little transparent window, and you can slide a little card in there, I guess, for your name and address. And you can see it says Hagen, all in capital letters, Hagen, comma, and you can see the E for Edwin. The rest is blocked out by the small transparent window, and then Siston in South Dakota. So I thought that was pretty interesting to record, put into the chapter. Just again, Grandpa's military script, very, very clear, noticeable, and a perfect example of a military writing. But back to the chapter. We got loaded up in the truck and called it a day. It was still plenty early, but that was enough hunting. There was no memorable conversation on the trip back to Grandpa's house. Just a slow drive down gravel roads, hoping to see a rooster on the shoulder. It would have been a nice bookend in the road hunting diary, coming full circle from the little kid asleep in the back of Grandpa's Blazer almost 25 years earlier. But no birds appeared, and we were back to the country house in short order. Grandpa's last hunt recorded for posterity, and nobody knew but him. I'm sure it's what he wanted. No fanfare. A last outing with family. One final memory he could recall from his recliner with a quick glance to his taxidermy roosters on the wall. All his hunting buddies had passed. A last outing with his grandsons. What more could he ask for? It was something he never asked for. He just did it. There are no photos of that day from that hunt. It's okay, though. The memories in this chapter will suffice. Add this to the list of conversations that I never had with Grandpa. I wish I had known that he was calling it a hunting career. Maybe it would have prompted more questions from me. So many questions. And I don't have answers. What was your most memorable pheasant hunt? Did you ever get a triple on pheasants? Those would have been good questions. However, a discussion I really wanted to have with Grandpa was about South Dakota state bird. A game bird that the entire state ended up building a tradition around. Is it weird that we kill our state bird? Is there any state that hunts its state bird? How in the world did South Dakota end up with a non-native species as its state bird, the Chinese ringneck pheasant? Not only a survivor in South Dakota, but a bird that thrives and drives a sporting economy around its existence. Speaking of foreigners, the Hungarian partridge, another non-native species, used to thrive in South Dakota, wing in wing with the Chinese ringneck pheasant. Partridge numbers seem to have just completely ebbed. I don't remember the last time I heard about somebody seeing one, not to mention harvesting one. At least I have some photos of a fine example from Grandpa's taxidermy collection. And here we have a photo of a Hungarian partridge. I'll read the caption and then talk about it a little bit. The caption reads, Grandpa's Hungarian partridge mount. You've probably noticed the rooster pheasant mount in the photos from the previous chapter about the den. Those photos didn't show this Hun, quote unquote, Hun, short for Hungarian partridge, because of the photo angles. This bird resided in my mom's garage for a few years, but it now hangs in my office/podcast studio here in Santa Fe. And it's just a picture of the Hungarian partridge mounted. It's a little worse for the wear, kind of little pockmarked feathers here and there sticking out, missing a couple wing feathers. And I think you can see it here in the studio, right behind me. Right up there, if you're watching the podcast on YouTube video, I'm pointing to it, and its head's covered by the U.S. flag hanging from the set of antlers I have in the background that's got draped with a flag, and there's a hunting cap hanging from there. I should have taken the flag down so you can see the mount better, but there it is. And there it is appearing in the chapter. And I mentioned the video podcast. I don't know, some of you, I'm sure, listen and some watch so you can see the photos. And I will, I'll get the photos uploaded to the video podcast, which it'll appear in YouTube. And I think Apple Podcasts now can handle the video also. So I'm not sure how that's been working or if it's working. I really haven't paid much attention to Apple video podcasts, but Apple Podcasts is how I access all my podcasts because I use an iPhone. But YouTube has been the home of the video podcast for all this time, all the previous episodes, and it'll be the home for this one for sure. So go ahead and go to YouTube and check it out if you want to see the videos once I get those uploaded. But very cool bird. The Hungarian partridges are probably a little bigger than a pigeon. I don't know. I don't want to say not quite half the size of like of a pheasant, but they're very cool birds. My memories of partridges just how the whole flock will just explode at your feet when you're walking. And I haven't had that happen for probably since I was in high school. I do not remember seeing a partridge for I don't know how long. Man, I I'm assuming they still have the license. You can get a license to hunt them if you see them when you're out hunting pheasants up in South Dakota. Just a part of the upland category of birds that you can get, along with grouse. But I don't know. Maybe they stopped allowing hunting because maybe there isn't that many anymore. Anyway, back to the chapter. As I conclude this chapter, I feel a void in my life, a melancholy emotion when seeing the photos, and now 25 plus years later, think of the people that have passed on. This memoir approaches an end, but it serves a satisfying purpose. A permanent record of two lives intertwined, a grandfather and a grandson. It may not be earth-shattering history, but special nonetheless, at least to me. And we have one final photo to bookend the chapter, and I'll read the caption and then describe the photo. The caption reads, "Out in the fields of Falk County with Grady, Brandy, the black lab, Garrett, Grandpa, and my dad, Gary Heitmann, taking a knee. This is a perfect memory because it is just how I remember it. I am behind the camera, and it is that photographer's perspective that will remain etched in my memory. It's fun to have these pictures and know that they turned out. This was before the digital camera, and it was always a little nerve-wracking picking up photos after the film was dropped off, developed, and printed. Today, I barely noticed the pile of pheasants as I enjoyed looking at the smiling faces and tall grass." So I'm not sure if I've used this photo before in the memoir. I may have, and I don't apologize because I just enjoy the photo so much. And in fact, I know I've used a crop of this with my dad and my grandpa, and I'll describe the photo a little more and then talk about that. Okay, Grady's standing at the back of the one side of the pickup, and the pheasants are all piled along the tailgate. And I'm pretty sure this is the same day, but this is a field photo. We're out in the field before we just head home. And so the variation of that first introductory photo to this chapter is when we got home and got the kids in the picture. And so this is just an earlier in the day photo. And Grady's got he's got a small video camera in his hand. And I think we were trying to get on video one last pheasant for the record. I don't think we ever got it on video. I'm not even sure. Maybe we did. And then so Grady's on the driver's side, rear, next to the tailgate, leaning on the pickup. And it looks like, I think that's Garrett's 20 gauge shotgun there, leaning in front of him. And Brandy, the black lab, she's kind of she's not looking at the camera. She's looking off to her right towards the left side of the photo. And Garrett's in the back of the pickup, kneeling down, and I think he's holding an orange hat in his hand. Looks like his left hand, and he's got his right hand out with his right hand petting or just resting on Brandy's back. And I think if this is 96, I think Brandy would have been like 4 years old, probably the peak of her pheasant hunting career. And then the right side of the photo, on the driver or the passenger side of the pickup, Grandpa is leaning against the pickup, and then in front of him, taking a knee, is my dad. So they're sitting there and looking at the camera. It looks like Grandpa's actually smiling. Grady looks like he's got a little smile, and Garrett's smiling, and my dad's he's looking like he's pretty stoic, not really smiling, but maybe he's got the sun and too much in his eyes. maybe all of them are kind of all squinting a little bit because we got the sun starting to get on the west side of the of the afternoon and looking into the people's faces, and maybe that was causing them to squint a little bit and maybe not smile as much as they were. More than the squint is causing the corners of their mouth to turn up. But just a really mixed emotions as far as the time frame goes. We're 1996 and 30 years later, I'm finishing up this chapter of the memoir, 2026, talking about this photo. It's just like a blink of an eye. It's time goes by, but glad I got it in the record. That's it. That's the end of the chapter. And of course, we got to close with a quote. And I close with a quote, and I adjust my cowboy hat, wearing the straw cap today. Didn't go with a fancy hat. A little warm still in the mid 90s down here in Santa Fe. So I thought I'd go with a straw hat. This is my original. This might be my original cowboy hat that I ever bought for working out in the sun. Try to keep the sun off my face. I think it's turned up a little more than it has been now. I'd like to have maybe the brim down flatter to provide more sun protection if you're actually outside. But so this was the George Strait style straw hat, the white summer cap, summer cowboy hat. So it's good that I'm wearing that today and not going with a wool fancy hat. Try to keep cool. And it's perfect because we have a quote from Doc Holliday to end this chapter. And I quote, "There is no normal life. There's just life," end quote. Thanks, Doc Holliday, for giving us that bit of wisdom as we wrap up chapter 44, The Last Pheasant Hunt. So that's it. That's the end of this chapter, and close out the chapter and move on to the rest of the podcast. So the people that just, have concerns about the chapter, you can just drop off. Got 32 minutes in already, so it's taken a good chunk of time to get here where we are, and I will probably be coming in way under an hour today just because I'm out of practice with my throat. The throat's already kind of it feels a little sore just from talking this much. But so we've gone to corrections, and it's been so long since I did a podcast. I don't even know what corrections there might be out there if I made mistakes on that. So we're just going to move on, and maybe that category of corrections is the rest of the podcast piled up upon itself, because, like I said, it's just short of 2 months, and we had been doing some sports updates, and including, of course, baseball is in full swing. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Minnesota Twins and their record. And the Minnesota Twins update is brought to you by Teener Baseball. Greg wrote a book. That's the quote on the cover from sports media personality Tony Kornheiser. So anyway, the Twins update brought to you by my book, Teener Baseball. Go out and get a copy today, and you'll enjoy it more than the Major League Baseball situation. So, and there's the poster, by the way. I decided to keep that up all summer during the baseball season because we have our sponsor, Teener Baseball Book. And per usual, during the baseball season, we decided we were going to give the updates on the record of the Minnesota Twins. And so far, I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong, and I'm surprisingly wrong, that the Twins are hanging around 500 record, currently 56 and 57 on the year. Just boggling my mind about how they're hanging in there. That's a 496 winning percentage, so just under 50, one game under 500. So, I mean, I think they're playing at the Royals tonight, so if they win tonight, like back at 500. And I think my prediction was I'd consistently said I don't think they'll be anywhere near 500. I thought they'd be closer to 400 winning percentage. But they're proving me wrong, and I guess it's really interesting to see that I guess my conclusion has been, as far as the team goes, is they seem like they get talent, but I think they have a lack of coaching. The coaching seems to be just not able to improve them. I think they're winning on just sheer athleticism. And I say sheer athleticism, and I note this for one of my other recurring segments, which I call verbal abuse, because sheer, I was trying to type that up, and I couldn't figure out if it was sheer as in SHAR or SHEER. I actually had to look it up to see which one is correct. It's sheer athleticism is SHEER, more like a sheer drop off versus sheer as in like shearing the sheep or cutting your hair, or shear forces where they split, like a bridge member would shear off and you'd have a bridge collapse, or shear a bolt off of your farm equipment, something like that. Anyway, I digress. And I compliment the athletes on the team of the Minnesota Twins and their sheer athleticism, because I think their ability just to hang in here at a 500 record is just based on pure athleticism, which is awesome. But I think there's such a lack of coaching and development in the Twins that they just can't get any further. They make so many mental mistakes. It's just unbelievable. Just base running mistakes, defensive mistakes, not knowing what to do or how to think about what to play. If the ball's hit to you in this situation, it seems like they just constantly costing themselves runs, or making mistakes on the base path where they run themselves out of possible scoring runs, or giving up runs on defense by not knowing where to throw the ball or what to do. And that to me is just the basics not being taught in the organization. And I contrast that with the way that the Twins won World Series in their championship years in 1987 and 1991, where they would never make a mistake. Just their defensive skill and the ability to know what to do with the ball, they were almost perfect in that. And their base running, situational stuff, always top notch. And here, the current coaching and developmental people, I think that's lost. I don't think they can. I think they just need a whole new category of coaches and trainers and developmental people, because it's just not happening. They just can only get so far with that support staff they have. Even if you're the greatest athlete in the world, I think you're never going to be able to win a championship without that push from coaching that can take you to that next level, so that everything is instinct. There's no hesitation. There's no having to think about what to do next. If the ball's hit to me, am I going to first, or am I going home? What am I doing? And you see that over and over with these guys. Base running mistakes, just it's painful to watch to me, because I think that was one of the things that you could model yourself after if you were an athlete, to say, I want to be like the Minnesota Twins, because they will not make a mistake. They will not beat themselves. They will not lose a game because of a mental mistake. And here that's happening over and over. And I guess maybe I should say that that's probably in general throughout all leagues out there. I think that's one of the things you have a problem with. And I'm guessing it's money related, where they're just not willing to pay coaches the money that probably they deserve to stay with the organization. And, like the leadership positions as general manager and head coach, manager, whatever you want to call it, that they can't attract enough superior, talented coaches to help them get there just because the money's not there. They can go do, coaches can go other organizations or do other things and make just as much money rather than have to keep working and make a little more money for all the hard work of traveling and doing that stuff with the players. That's my guess. So I will continue to say that the Minnesota Twins will never win a championship in my lifetime unless there's a total reorganization, revamp, and that could happen. I say that I don't, because I think the organization needs to be sold and a new ownership needs to come in and be able to reinvigorate the whole organization. And that's fine. I mean, if they don't do it, I'm on my way out because they're a distant team to me, and there's a lot of closer teams that I can cheer for, and I think that's going to be the separation point for me sooner than later. It's hard, but time marches on. Anyway, that's it. I mean, I really have a positive comment on the Minnesota Twins being able to hang in there this far. They could easily make the playoffs and actually win a series. I don't think they can go any further than that. They did make some moves. They got a supposed closer. I'm not sure exactly how good this closer is. They traded for at the trade deadline from Toronto. I think he's a way better option than anything they currently have on the team. So that is an indication to me they're actually looking at trying to actually win this year. So that's great news for them. But I just don't think that they have the coaching skill and development enough to actually win a championship, win a World Series. I don't see it. Anyway, continuing with sports headlines. We're 2 months behind, but guess what? I was correct. In the NHL hockey Stanley Cup Finals, I had picked Carolina Hurricanes to win, and they did win on June 14th. They took home the Stanley Cup on the road. They beat the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and I was right on that. I guess I'm able to do a little better predicting. I think in this situation, I was able to actually, go, head over heart on that think about that the Carolina just had a better team from what my eyes told me, and it was true. And just the day before the NHL final game on June 13th, the New York Knicks were the champs for the first time since 1973 or 1970 or something. I mean, it's been 40 years. I can't remember what it was, what exactly it was. 46 or 43 years, something like that. And as I predicted, they beat San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. And I was disappointed because I didn't want New York Knicks to win. But I could just, by my eye test, it was just easy to see that they were a hotter team and they dominated. I think they won 4-1 on their series. And I can't remember what it was. 4-2, Carolina Hurricanes won their championship series. So it was a little late on my update on the top level sports championships, but I predicted both those correctly, and very satisfied with my guesswork on both those fronts. So very happy about that. But more importantly, we're going right into the NFL. And I think the last time I had reported on the NFL is that I had canceled my NFL ticket and I was waiting for a deal, and I was not going to renew unless there was some sort of deal. And guess what? I did get a deal. I did achieve half price for my NFL ticket for this year. And from YouTube TV, I got a military discount. So it was half price. It's total victory on my part. I can't believe it actually happened. And I'm very satisfied with my cancellation and hold out for a better deal. And for the time being, I'm glad. I don't know if I can do that every year, but I guess if I get half price with my military discount every year, I'm probably going to stick with it until further notice. We'll see. Let's see how the NFL goes. The NFL camps have kicked off. It's we're just a little over a month away from NFL kickoff, and it's just, it's exciting. We're about there, and I will like to, announce that I'm not going to combine the NFL picks with the actual chapter podcast. We'll separate them, so we'll probably get 2 podcasts a week during the NFL season if I'm still doing chapters. Once I get that wrapped up, it will probably be, the NFL season will probably still be going on when I'm all out of chapters, as far as the Colonel and the Kid memoir goes for that part of the podcast. So we'll see what happens. But they will be separated this year because I think they got too long and convoluted and outdated. Their evergreen status of the NFL picks did not hold up over time because no one cares about that. A week later after your predictions and recapping of games, no one cares. I don't think anyone cared anyway, but I will continue to try to cover the NFL with my insight, if you will call it that, and then separate that from the actual memoir itself. So there we go. In big news, there hasn't been big news for a while because there's been no podcast to share it with, but big news was that my whole house that I was purchasing in Elephant Butte area, by the Elephant Butte Reservoir, it fell through for various reasons I won't go into at this time, but it may have been just a blessing in disguise because the reservoir is at 1.5% capacity, which basically means the river is still flowing in that area. So there's the water. We're in a terrible drought. We're in a desert, obviously, but in my location here in New Mexico, and I was going to, buy a house down there and plan on doing some duck hunting, and that the duck hunting is still on as far as I can tell. I'm going to try to get something worked out for that and hopefully be able to continue. I think I might be, I might be looking at renting a house for a month down there. We'll see how that goes. See how that potentially might work out. It's looking very positive, but if there's no water, then I won't do that, and that'll be, I'll be just put on hold until there's more water. There will be. I mean, droughts come and go. There's high water levels, low water levels, whatever. I feel confident that we're going to be able to have some good memories made down there doing some duck hunting. And I'm still looking and planning on getting a boat so I can, tackle this endeavor myself. If I rent a house, or I still have my camper, can haul down there, just have the camper down there. And in fact, I did, I invested in a new shotgun, a new Browning A5. So I got that going for me. So I'm excited about that. I haven't even unboxed it yet. I need to do that and make sure it's okay. It hasn't even been assembled and got the packing grease out of it. So I got to get that taken care of. And that's on the agenda, but, something to look forward to. I'm looking maybe in month of December and sometime month of January, doing some duck hunting every day down there. That's my vision of what I see for myself doing that, and just enjoying that in the future. So I'm hoping for some good El Nino weather. There's been lots of news reports stating that the El Nino is going to provide a lot of warm and wet weather for this winter. And so that should provide plenty of runoff and some good waters down the southern part of the state of New Mexico, and provides some ample duck hunting opportunity. That's my hope. I think the models are showing that, and based on overlays with previous models of the El Nino, which is the warming of the Pacific waters, which helps provide more moisture for North America, basically. So based on historical models, I think that we're on track to see some good rains and runoff and maybe some snow up here in the north part of the state in Santa Fe, and get that water down back in the Elephant Butte Reservoir and be able to hunt some ducks up down there. That's looking forward to that. And I've throttled back some of my other commitments to some of the duck hunting efforts. I'm just probably going to go with some regular, invest in some more regular decoys. I haven't been sawed off and looking at some power tools to carve my own duck decoys yet. Maybe in the future, if the water fills up and have some successful hunts and get back on track with that. But I've been thinking about that, carving some of my own wooden duck decoys. I think that there'd be a lot of satisfaction of bringing, drawing ducks into your own hand carved duck decoys. And that's another part of my vision for the future. So I'm looking forward to that. But finally, I think I just wanted to take some time and go with my last segment for the day. And renewing this one is a segment that I do have some more in the future, but I have a segment called "Look What I Found," and today we're going to share that. If you give me a moment here, I'm going to put it in the picture so you can see. If you're watching the video, I don't know if it shows up. Probably shows up pretty good. I'm holding up an elk antler, a shed elk antler that I found. And when I was scouting for my elk hunting for this year, I'm going to go up on Unit 50 in New Mexico, which it's very much desert. But they have a mountain called Pot Mountain. That's the English translation. Cerro de la Olla. Cerro, which means kind of hill or mountain. And de la Olla means pot. So it looks kind of like a pot sitting there. It just juts up in the middle of the sagebrush desert, high desert. Elevation's probably about just under 10,000 feet. And so I was up at the top of that mountain. It's all pinon, juniper up on the top. At the top opens up. There's grass up there. So the elk will be out there in the evenings and at night. And in the mornings, they're getting back into the trees. So you got to be up at the top of the mountain in the morning and evening to try to catch them when they're out there moving around and not in the thick trees. But I found that antler up there, so I know this is probably a big guy, a big bull, at least one big bull up there. And in 2014, 12 years ago, I shot a bull up at the top of that mountain. So it can be done. I know it can be done. 12 years ago is a long time. I've gotten 12 years older. So I'm trying to get back into a little better shape and cautiously optimistic and try to have some positive thoughts about doing that. And it's so funny because I found that antler. I was up at the scouting on June 13th. That was a Saturday, June 13th. I drove up there. It's a terrible drive. It takes an hour to go about 15 miles to get up the base of that mountain so that you can hike up the top. And it takes probably an hour and a half to hike through the trees up to the top. So it's a pretty good investment, but that's one of the nice things about hunting up there is that you're probably not going to be bothered because there's not a lot of people that want to go through that effort. Just driving on the roads that are to get there, they're just so rough and I mean, just bare bones roads. They're just cinders because it was an old volcano that blew up and it left lots of cinders, and there's just no approaching that road without all these. Just it's like driving through on washboard roads, washboard gravel roads if they're not being maintained properly. But there's nothing you can do about this because it's all cinder. You get a few areas where it's just sandy and you can cruise through those, but the rest of the roads are just, it's a real test just to get to the access to that mountain. So, and I'm planning on going up there. I think this week, in the next 7 days or so, I'll probably be up there, and I think I'm going to camp out and try to blaze a trail. And I have some retroreflective markers I'm going to put on trees so I can do it early in the morning when I'm walking up so I can know where to go and not get off path, because there's some places where you can get in, dead ends where there's a steep drop offs where you don't want to, and really rocky, and you want to avoid those. And if it's in the dark, it's hard to do if you don't have some sort of trail marked out. So that's my plan when I go up there and scout. I'm going to try to mark out a trail, maybe stip some branches here and there so it's easier walking up there. Tie some ribbon on trees for the daylight walk, or traverse up and down, and then have retroflective markers going up and down for night, just to make the trip easier, and just have confidence that I can save my energy and not be wandering off trail and getting caught and have to backtrack and stuff like that. So that's my plan for the next week. After we get this podcast in the books. And anyway, it's kind of exciting. I'm looking forward to this, even though it's going to be a real challenge physically, I think, for me, just now that I'm 57 years old. Once you get in your 50s, it's a lot different than 40s. I'll tell you that. Out in the elk woods anyway. So, but it's kind of exciting, especially that I found this elk antler. It's a nice one. I was looking at this, I compared it to the biggest bull that I got hanging on my wall, and it's actually, it's only a 5-point. I have a 6-pointer on the wall, but the main beam is 44 inches. So that's, 3.5 feet long, and it's a little taller, and it's just a little bigger than any bull I've gotten. So if this bull lived through the winter and is still up there and you grew another set of antlers like this, maybe a little bigger, man, that'll be a nice bull. I'm excited for the opportunity to try to harvest him. So looking forward to that. And it's going to be a challenge, but I don't know. There's just something about elk hunting that just really, really makes me excited. And it's hard to, I'm just talking about duck hunting down at Elephant Butte. And I guess maybe once I get that, if I can get that working full go, the way I envision it to be, maybe that'll be as exciting as elk hunting for me. But elk hunting just dominates my thoughts right now, as far as the outdoors go. And just, it's awesome that I found this shed antler, because it really made me start thinking about stuff and lit a fire underneath me to get going and get out there and just get after it. It's exciting to me anyway. So anyway, I think that's all I got for today. We just about made it an hour, and it's funny because I hear some thunder, so we might actually be getting some rain. It's weird. We are in such a drought down here. And I think I would say, I've told people this, and I'll put it on record in the podcast. This is the hottest summer I've had that I've been part of in living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And this is my 22nd year. I'm sorry. 22nd year of being here in Santa Fe in the summer. And this has been the hottest one that I could ever remember. So pray for some rain for us, and hopefully we'll get it. And again, let's get some runoff down there to Elephant Butte Reservoir. I can get some duck hunting done too. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. I apologize for being so lazy, I guess. Maybe it's not lazy. I'm just prudent with my time, trying to get things organized, trying to get the editing done correctly so we have a good record of the kernel. And glad to be back in the saddle. We'll get some more podcasts out here. They'll be coming a little more frequently, hopefully, in the next month or so, as we run up to elk hunting, and keep you updated on that too. So anyway, I'll sign off. And as always, I want you to stay positive and take action. Be proactive, be positive, be assertive. Those are the things that I think that really help you enjoy your life. So I implore you to do that. And we say, you take action, don't defer. And in honor of the NFL upcoming season, it's like, you win the coin toss, take the ball, march down the field, and score. That's what I advise. And as always, we're going to sign off with the famous words: knock, and the door will be open to you. Seek, and you will find. Ask, and you shall be given. So that's it. That's the end of this podcast, chapter 44, The Last Pheasant Hunt. Thanks for joining me. And I don't know if the thunder is going to show up on the end of the podcast here, but let's get some rain. See you next time.